Hey y'all, this is Southern Woods here. Welcome to round 2, the Big 16 of the video game franchise tournament. Alright, last video was a long one. It was hefty, but we had a lot of upsets, honestly. We have some underdogs heading into the second round. And if you haven't seen the big play-in tournament just to get to this tournament, I go recommend checking that out first because there's a lot more video game franchises represented altogether. But we're in the Big 16 again. All right, so 8 matches instead of 16 matches is going to feel a lot quicker and a lot nicer. We got the magical bowl full of 16 categories, and we're going to see who comes out on top and gets to go to the finale with the Great 8 and beyond. Still best out of 5, first to 3 points win. Let's start with the number 1 seed, Mario, against the 17th seed, Star Wars. All right, first category we have is the last category, which is 16, which is going to be awards. That's going to be Mario. Can already tell you straight up, Mario has won Game of the Year, numerous other awards and accolades, a lot more games to go through. Star Wars has had some accomplishments, but nothing compared to the grandeur of Mario. They go up 1-0. Next up is category 9. Remember, my 9s have lines. I'm breaking the mold. I'm changing things. We have cultural significance between the two. Mario is also going to win this one. Star Wars itself has a lot of cultural significance, but how much of that comes from the video game franchise itself? Not as much. Meanwhile, Mario, much more. It spans across generations. Same with Star Wars, but it's hard to argue the complete cultural significance Mario has to our culture. They're going to go up 2-0. Very quickly, threatening to sweep Star Wars. We got category 14. Maybe this is something that Star Wars can be competitive in. And that's going to be difficulty. Maybe. Let's check it out, y'all. There are some difficult Star Wars games. There is, all right? There's different games with difficult mechanics and gameplay. Mario's not very difficult altogether. All right, there is some reputation for the difficulty in early entries, but generally, it's not super hard. There's some hard ones, but not super hard. Star Wars is going to get the nod here. They won't get swept. Next up, we got category 15. Category 15, we're going from difficulty to modding community between the two. All right, the more mods, the better here. Star Wars has a medium capability of modding and a medium modding community, specifically with older titles like Knights of the Old Republic, has very active modding communities. Newer games have been more restricted from the developers, but Mario, not a whole lot of mods themselves, to be honest. I mean, there is a strong modding community, but it's not super big. All right, kind of tight on the developers in a lot of series. So I'm going to give the nod here to Star Wars. We could see a huge upset here, depending on what this next category is. And that's going to be 12. Category 12, which is going to be multiplayer? No, adaptations. Well, here's where it's difficult here, all right, with the movie and book adaptations, because Star Wars itself is a movie and book adaptation. It's not really, the game is an adaptation of the movies, not the other way around, so it's hard to argue for it. Meanwhile, Mario has its own 1993 movie, the new Super Mario Bros. Movie, several children books, comics, novels, all right, significant and massive hits regarding adaptations from the video game itself. So I have to give the nod here to Mario based on that reasoning. They win a close one, 3-2, going on to the Great 8. Meanwhile, Star Wars, you got taken over by the dark side. You're out of here. Next up, we have the 24th seed Dragon Quest and the 25th seed Wizarding World. The first category we got is category 8, which is going to be soundtrack between the two. Dragon Quest has some good orchestral work. It feels grand and classical, sense of nobility and adventure. All right, Harry Potter. All right, not too bad. All right, there's some iconic themes, but it relies heavily on existing music rather than original compositions for the game itself. For that reason, I have to give the nod here to Dragon Quest. Next category we got is 5. Category 5 is going to be logo preference between the two. I expressed in the last video that I really like the Wizarding World logo. I like the wands, I like the font. The black is cool, it's dark, it's cryptic. It flows very well with everything. Meanwhile, I also enjoy Dragon Quest. Both of these won this category in their first round. Dragon Quest kind of retro. I like the colors, the splash, the pop, but I kind of like the dark aesthetic of Harry Potter a little bit more. They're going to tie it up 1-1. Next up is category 16. Category 16 is the awards here. Dragon Quest has won Best RPG a few times, has some long-lasting influence and gets awards here and there, but Wizarding World has won Best Adaptation and has received just a little bit more notable awards for more specific reasons like world building and connection to certain things. Not much better, but a little bit more that I see, so I'm giving the nod here to Harry Potter. They go up 2-1. Next up, category 9. Category 9, of course, being that cultural significance between the two. Harry Potter benefits from the cultural significance of the universe itself. Does the video games offer more? A little bit, but you have to separate the two, which is the problem with like that and Star Wars, some of those franchises. Dragon Quest is a cornerstone of RPGs in Japan. It has made impact outside of the country now. It's tough, but I think I'm still going to give the nod here to Harry Potter. They're going to get a 3-1 dub over Dragon Quest. Moving on to the grade 8. Dragon Quest, you are out of here. Next up, we have the 28th seed, Tom Clancy's, against the 12th seed, Resident Evil. Pretty big underdog. I think the biggest coming into this round is Tom Clancy's. We got category 4 to start us off, which is going to be number of games in the series. For Tom Clancy's, we have 30 entries. Meanwhile, for Resident Evil, we also have 30. So we're going to re-roll here between the two. That hasn't happened much. Subscribe if you like this tournament so far. You might as well hit the subscribe button. I also have a lot of other tournaments and cool videos out there for you to check out after you finish this one. We got category 11 next, which is going to be multiplayer. Multiplayer between Tom Clancy and Resident Evil. Resident Evil has some multiplayer elements in certain games, but it's primarily a one-player game. Tom Clancy, a lot of them are co-op or multiplayer, like, of course, Rainbow Six Siege. So I have to give the first point here to Tom Clancy's. Next up, we got category 13. Category 13 being the DLCs between the two. Tom Clancy, especially The Division, Rainbow Six, significant DLCs, expansions, and missions, and operators and whatnot. Hard to beat that. In Resident Evil, just not as much. They have some smaller DLCs, but not as much as Tom Clancy's does. Tom Clancy going to go up 2-0, threatening to sweep Resident Evil. That would very much further their underdog story. Now we got my personal preference. Not going to happen here. I hate Rainbow Six Siege. I like a lot of the other Tom Clancy games, but Rainbow Six Siege struck a nerve with my ass. A lot of people too. I love the Resident Evil franchise. I love horror, as you know, so they're going to get a point here. Next up, we got category 10. Category 10, what is category 10, y'all? That's going to be innovation. All right, which games have been more innovative to the video gaming world? Resident Evil, I mean, it is the pioneer, the pinnacle of survival horror games. Revolutionized like fixed camera angles, item management, and later fluid third-person shooting mechanics like in Resident Evil 4. Tom Clancy's has done some innovation, specifically with the tactical stealth and the shooter genres and methodical approach to combat, but Resident Evil, a lot more innovative, in my opinion. They're going to tie it up 2-2. And next up, we got 7. 7 going to be the storylines here. Tom Clancy's, there are some storylines within the games. There's some storytelling elements and campaign type stuff in certain entries. Resident Evil, though, very, very storyline heavy, deep, rich lore based on several entries, and different ones have their different shit. Resident Evil is going to climb back from the abyss and get a dub over Tom Clancy's, destroying the underdog story. Resident Evil moves on to the grade 8. Tom Clancy's, you are out of here. All right. This is the 4th matchup. We have the 13th seed Legend of Zelda and the 4th seed GTA Grand Theft Auto. Heavy hitting matchup here as we start with the 13th seed, which is DLCs. Legend of Zelda, as we talked about last video, not big on the DLCs. There is very few, all right, not much of a focus. However, Grand Theft Auto has a good bit. Regular updates with new missions, vehicles, weapons, high story-based DLCs are less frequent, but they do occur as well, so GTA gets the first point. Next up is Category 4. Category 4 is going to be total number of games in the series. GTA has, surprisingly, 16 altogether. I didn't realize it was that much. Meanwhile, who's the other one? Legend of Zelda. Legend of Zelda has 30 entries. All right, almost double. So they're going to get a point here, tying it 1-1. Next up, we got Category 11. And Category 11 is going to be multiplayer experience. Damn it, boys. So, Legend of Zelda, obviously, primarily first person compared to the massive online multiplayer experience, which GTA has. So, GTA is going to get the dub right here, or for that point, going up 2-1. Next up, we got Category 2, my personal preference. I like the idea of Legend of Zelda, but I've never played it personally, and GTA is pretty fun, so I'm going to give the nod here to GTA. They win pretty convincingly against good old Link and Zelda, knocking them out and moving on to the grade 8. All right, we are halfway through this round 2. Next matchup is the 3rd seed Call of Duty against the 14th Need for Speed. Number 1 category is revenue. Call of Duty, $430 million. Need for Speed, $150 million. All right, almost 4 times as much. Call of Duty going up 1-0 quickly. Next up, we got Category 6. Category 6 is going to be the character. Call of Duty has Captain Price, 37th most iconic video game franchise character. Need for Speed doesn't have its own, so Call of Duty goes up quickly, 2-0. Next category we have is Category 10. Category 10 is going to be innovation. Call of Duty, of course, helped revolutionize the first-person shooters, particularly fast-paced multiplayer focus, popularized modern online multiplayer progression systems and cinematic campaigns. So there's some good bit of innovation there compared to Need for Speed, which helped innovate the arcade racing genre, but other than that, it's not super innovative or revolutionary. Call of Duty is going to get a very quick sweep, 3-0, knocking out Need for Speed, who lost the race. Call of Duty moves on to the grade 8. Third to last matchup, we have the 11th seed Sonic against the 27th seed, one of the biggest Cinderella stories, Mortal Kombat. And the first category is going to be 5, which is going to be logo preference between the two. Sonic the Hedgehog, I don't care for the logo too much. It's kind of cool, but there's something about it that I don't particularly care for. Meanwhile, Mortal Kombat, very cool, very iconic as well. I like the color scheme. I like the shadow of the dragon there. I'm giving Mortal Kombat their first point. Next up is Category 8. Category 8 is going to be soundtrack between the two. Sonic, a lot more scores, all right, a lot more theatrics and stuff going on with the music. Mortal Kombat, there's some cool music, but it's mainly, the classic fighting music, not as entertaining, so Sonic is going to tie it up 1-1. Next up, we got Category 2, my personal preference. I like Sonic all right, but Mortal Kombat, I think, is a little bit more my style, my speed. It's a little cooler. They get a point here, going up 2-1 against Sonic the Hedgehog. Next up, Category 10. Category 10, going back to the innovation. Sonic, all right, the speed-based platforming was a stark contrast to the slower-paced Mario games, which really innovated level design, bringing a sense of urgency to kinetic energy platformers. Very innovative in its own right. Meanwhile, Mortal Kombat revolutionized fighting games with its use of violent fatalities and digitalized sprites, brought competitive fighting with some deeper mechanics compared to like Street Fighter, but nothing compared to the innovation Sonic brings to the table. Last roll, we got Category 6, which is going to be iconic characters. Sonic, of course, pretty iconic with the Hedgehog being number 3. Meanwhile, Mortal Kombat doesn't have a top 50 iconic character. Sonic gets away with one, beating Mortal Kombat 3-2. Moving on to the Grade 8, Mortal Kombat, you are out of here. We have 2 more matchups in this round 2. The second to last one being Borderlands, 26th seed, against the 10th seed Final Fantasy. And the first category we're going to roll is 12. And category 12 is going to be movie and book adaptations. This will be interesting. Final Fantasy has CGI films like Final Fantasy The Spirits Within and Final Fantasy Advent Children, several novels and manga adaptations. Not super successful. A lot going on there. Meanwhile, for who we talking about? Borderlands, there is an upcoming film adaptation in development, apparently. A few comics going on. The anticipation's high, but just not as much releases as Final Fantasy. So Final Fantasy is going to get the first point. Next up, we got Category 11. Category 11, my friends, is going to be multiplayer experience between the two. Borderlands, known for some co-op multiplayer experience, offers a mix of fast-paced shooting, looting, RPG elements, chaotic energy within its multiplayer. Pretty fun, pretty iconic. Final Fantasy, more focus is on the first-person element comparatively, although there are some MMO multiplayer experiences. But Borderlands is going to get a point here, tying it up 1-1. Next up, we got Category 14. Category 14 is difficulty between Borderlands and Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy, especially some of the some entries, offer real steep difficulty and intricate mechanics. Very difficult. Borderlands, difficulty can spike depending on the loot you have and level scaling and boss encounters. Co-op play can have some difficulty, but Final Fantasy, just a little bit more. They go up 2-1. Next up, we got Category 1, which is going to propel Final Fantasy as they have $185 million revenue. Borderlands, just $85 million in comparison, $100 million less. Borderlands going to get knocked out here. Final Fantasy moving on to the Grade 8. And we have one final matchup, which is NBA 2K 15th seed against the 2nd seed Pokemon. Basketball versus Pikachu. We got the 12th category, which is going to be adaptations. All right, let's look here. Obviously, Pokemon gonna get the nod here. They have movie adaptations, comics, novels, manga, all sorts of stuff. NBA, there's not much adaptation from the game itself. What was that? So Pokemon gonna get an early lead here, 1-0. All right, next up we have Category 4. Category 4 is going to be number of games in the series. Pokemon over 100, 2K only 25. So Pokemon quickly up 2-0, threatening to give us, I think, our second sweep of the second round. And we got Category 11, which has been pulled quite a bit the second round, and that is going to be multiplayer. So NBA 2K is probably going to win here. Pokemon has some multiplayer versus experiences and some of the entries, but NBA 2K really heavy focus on the multiplayer. They're going to get a point here. Next up, we got Category 3. Category 3, been a minute since we got this one, which is the established date. Pokemon 1996, NBA 2K 1999, because 2K going into the 2000s. So, Pokemon a few years older, they're going to get a pretty convincing win here. 3-1, moving to the Grade 8, the finale. NBA 2K, you've been knocked out, you've been KO'd, and that is the end of the second round, the Big 16. Looking ahead, we have some heavy hitters. A lot of top 10 seeds have moved on from this point. The only Cinderella story really is Harry Potter being the 25th seed, and then you have a middle of the pack 12th seed Resident Evil. But I will see y'all in the finale to determine which video game franchise is the definitive best based on this magical bowl of categories. Hit me with that like button. If you want to see more of these tournaments, subscribe so that you can be on alert. Southern Woods out.